good things, great things, and sometimes the most amazing things. It all can happen if you want it to happen. And I think now is the moment. Meditation, workout, cooking, and much more. We're giving you everything that you need being back at home with Wellness 360 at home, brought to you by ICICI Lombard. Welcome again to yet another episode where we're giving you something really amazing, something that might just make you think and maybe rectify a lot more. So everyone who's watching us live on this link and on Facebook and Instagram, welcome to Wellness 360 at home. Yet again, my name is Mithun Upadhyay. Next 1 hour, I'm sure you will take back something very special. So what really is happening and who is our guest? Today, we're going to talk about the mental health. This is one criteria that we all need to address. 7.8% of people across India are suffering through mental health, and how to get out of it. Anxiety, depression, bipolar, and there are many names, and more than that, there are panic attacks. So how do we address this? So we got somebody to make sure that all your questions are answered in a format that is well suited for everyone who's watching us back home or wherever you are. Debilitative to generative, COVID-19 and beyond. Joining us today is somebody who masters this. Well, it's time that I welcome right now. Well, she's a certified counselor, a certified transpersonal regression therapist, and member of Earth. An NLP, a practitioner and certified neurofeedback technician. She is amongst the first to add neurofeedback in her clinic in India. With Thriving Center for Mental and Emotional Wellness in the heart of Mumbai, she is one of the most prominent voices of mental wellness, having spoken nationally on numerous platforms. She's also a regular columnist on Business World in her consulting practice. She's been an instrumental in setting up and aligning startups as well as counseling practices with organizations, communities, and educational institutes. We are delightful to welcome here at Wellness 360 at home with ICICI Lombard, the one and only Prakriti Poddar right now. Hi Prakriti, good to see you and welcome to Wellness 360. How are you doing this evening?
Great, Mithun. Lovely to see you. And congratulations on this whole title of Wellness 360. I think it's fabulous given the fact that wellness is what really matters in not only these days, but matters all the time. So really, thank you for having me. I'm very excited about this conversation going forward. I think it's a conversation that is needed every single day. And I think that if you maximize your learning with what we're doing today, I think that you are set in life, and not just beyond COVID, but set for life in good measure and good health and good values that will uphold your entire well-being 360.
I like how you said, Prakriti, it's just not about this scenario right now, the crisis, but for a long run in your life, you can actually get a good balance. And of course, we will address the main subject about, were we prepared for COVID-19? Are we prepared, or can we get prepared? So just to all our viewers, today our Wellness 360 at home is going to be a little bit of a moderated way. Well, I'm going to ask questions on certain topics and Prakriti will address all our answers regarding the questions. So let's get this started. The mental health resilience. It's something that, you know what, everybody wants to know about. So the first question that I want to ask you, Prakriti, is about self-care under COVID-19.
So this is really relevant because all my other answers will be looped to this. Self-care is the most important aspect of your well-being. If you understand what is going on in your mind and how do you address what's going on in your mind to make it a positive system, I think you are set for a successful life system. So what this really means is when we're looking at our entire self-care, we're looking at feelings. What really are we feeling? What are the triggers to what we're feeling? How is our behavior getting changed or adaptive given the feelings that we experience? Now, I'm going to say some very generalized statements only because of the fact that I do believe that in India, we still have gender roles, and self-care means taking time out for yourself to be able to give you that. Um, Currently, I know you said 7.5% or 7.8%. It's far higher in terms of mental health illnesses and mental health distress. Anxiety and stress are also linked to mental health distress. And our experience, or my experience in this domain, has sort of made me recognize that you may have mental health illnesses that you didn't even know about. There may be triggers of stress that you didn't really pay attention to. But in these times, it kind of gets aggravated. And really just being the kind of person who listens to yourself is what the key steps are. So when we really talk about mental health and our own self-care, we really need to focus on the 5 elements of well-being. Number 1 is your mindset. So really, what is your mindset? How do you focus on bringing your mind to become constructive and to aid you? So get rid of the unhelpful, get rid of the irrational thoughts that keep popping up, and focus on the rational. How do you then even try to do this without having the other verticals in place? The other verticals are your choice when it comes to your nutrition, your choice when it comes to your physical fitness, your choice when it comes to your recovery, because these elements are what make you well. Your Wellness 360 is mindset, nutrition, physical fitness, as well as recovery. So people who say that I'm feeling great, I'm feeling fit, but haven't had a good night's rest are not going to be able to work effectively or to have the reserve of energy to work or to move in your day and make sure your interactions are positive. When you feel stressed, I know I have 3 children, and when I come back from work on a regular day before COVID-19, I would be really stressed and I would need that time to unwind. And if I didn't get that time to unwind, I would be irritable. And it's unfair because I need to understand my own reserve of energy to be able to give the best of myself in any situation. Your well-being arc is the arc of nutrition, exercise, as well as recovery that enables you to keep your mind well. The choices that you make in this are extremely important. And I want to say this again because a lot of people will say, it sounds kind of like, you need to have space to do exercise. You don't. The moment you have enough space to lie down, you have space to do planks, you have place to do push-ups. If you have a place to sit, you have place to do a squat. This is well-being when it comes to physical well-being. Some people have asked me in the past, how can we talk about food? Some of us don't have any choice in food, right? So there are people who have choice, there are people who don't have choice. I'm talking about the spectrum of people. You have always got a choice. You have a choice. And also one of the most important things to recognize here is that dal is available to everybody. Dal is nutritious. It's important that you choose the nutritious food. Also important to recognize that if you are not moving that much, if you are not burning that much, you must measure the amount you eat to the amount you're actually consuming in terms of in your living, and marry the two. Because if you're overeating and really have very little energy that you're expending, chances are you will put on weight. The moment you put on weight, there is another mental health cycle that takes place that doesn't make you feel really good about yourself. So it's also a check and balance. In fact, all these things, if you're not motivated to exercise, it's a check, mental check. Am I well? No, you're probably not. If you're not motivated to eat right, you're probably having some kind of stress or anxiety which you haven't picked up on. If you're not sleeping right, these are all behavior patterns that emerge when your mental health isn't aligned. So it's important not only to focus on making that better for yourself, but also important to focus on whether that's changed in any way. Because if it's changed in any way, those are triggers for you. And I think you need to set up non-negotiables. If you want to be successful through this lockdown, make sure you don't lock yourself down by not focusing on the things that will uplift you. So you need to make yourself non-negotiables of timing, scheduling your well-being, because well-being needs to be scheduled. And I think what we can do now is kind of, you can put your questions out there because we can take them later and we can move on to the next episode of things that we want to talk about.
That's right. But I love how you put things across about the self-care, that how you need to just concentrate, meditation, of course, workout, but recovery is really, really important in order to, settle yourself down, calm yourself down for a better you for sure. My next subject of conversation is going to be about the caregivers from the self-care. Like we spoke about self-care, but how about the caregivers?
This is the most difficult aspect at this point. If you're a primary caregiver, I feel for you. I feel for you, really, I do, because it is a juggling show out there. It's not easy. In fact, we're running a well-being, it's called Wellbeing Volunteers United. It has 600 volunteers on it. And most of our calls are from people who are primary caregivers and really struggling to find time, really struggling to find their balance, and extremely nervous and worried about the rest of the family. So there are a lot of indicators that have highlighted the fact that stress and anxiety has really increased for people who are primary caregivers. And it's not easy, because you have to make sure that you are organizing yourself, organizing time for others in your family, organizing time for yourself, like I said, in terms of self-care, and organizing that space within the family circuit to have meaningful conversations. The other thing I feel for are people who are primary caregivers, primary earners as well, because for them, it becomes really important to juggle their job with what is going on in the house. And spouses are not really geared right now to understand that you need to spend, not only spouses, but even your family members, about how much time you need to spend at work, because they need your help as well. Because now the download in the house is so much more, initially, of course, you're used to your children going to school, you're used to your family members doing their own thing, really convening only over meals. And now you have them all the time. And you need to entertain, especially if you do not want your children to be on the iPad all the time. You are going to be struggling. If you do not want your elders to go out, and you do not want your elders to feel the impact of loneliness, you are going to need to be involved. These aspects really create a massive burden, but there are ways, and that's the great part. There are ways to kind of sort of strategize this situation. There are ways to build up your family system for this period, and that really makes you powerful in order to deal with this situation. It is like running a business. Everything that we have to do during COVID is reimagining, dismantling the past, remantling the present, and imagining how to build a safe system for yourself where you're giving enough to your family members. So some of the things that I think you need to pay attention to is really communicate with your family members openly about your challenges, about what you need to do, about your time limitations, and build a schedule together. Don't be dogmatic and tell them what you want to do, but really communicate. Work on some kind of coping techniques. Like if you find that you are irritable, you're losing your temper because you don't have the space, you don't have the time, work on the coping strategies that we've already talked about in self-care. Practice your recovery, which is not only sleep, but meditation, mindfulness, music, spend time if you can, even just walking on the spot. Just spend that time with yourself, because it's important for you to develop that coping technique. If you feel overwhelmed because there's a lot of issues taking place with the tug and pull in your home, you need to make sure that you give yourself that break where you set up those special dates with your partner or with your family members. It could be date night, it could be game night, it could be game night with your children, it could be just interacting with them on story time, or it could be talking to getting your elders to talk to you and tell you stories. It could be anything. You just make sure that communication becomes open and you set time for that. It could even be once a week, but as long as you're giving that time, I think that there is a good sort of idea for them to motivate and mobilize themselves to be able to aid you, because it becomes a supportive team.
Right. I like that point again. I know, and because you spoke about spouses and the family members, my next question is going to be addressed towards the relationships. Now that's, a very important criteria that one will look at it. So what is your take on relationships in the scenario?
This again has been really tortured. Okay, I want to be candid because most people will want to say, will not want to be candid, but because we have a live pulse on really what's happening in India. There is a lot of intimate terrorism that's taking place. There are feelings of no escape. So even though we are as a function of humanity, we believe in community. But being embedded the whole time in this kind of conversation, this kind of consistent, feedback of your partner with yourself or your parents with you, or I'm just going to take the primary relationship point of view. There's a lot of stress in it. People are demanding extra time. People do not have that extra time. People do not want to communicate actively because communication has become or had become in the past functional. Now communication in this state cannot be functional anymore. It needs to be uplifting because you're all in a situation together. And that means you have to change your communication style. You have to make it more conducive to the environment it is. You have to make sure that, so a lot of times people have recognized now they get time to spend with their partners at home all the time. They recognize that maybe some of their ideology of life didn't match. Maybe some of their thoughts about what their future don't match anymore. So there's a lot of it's almost like what we call in our sense sort of existential crisis. I think a lot of us are going through an existential crisis where we're really questioning what our relationship brings to us. How does it add value? This comes with a silver lining because you can communicate and add value to each other by giving each other that space, by giving each other that time, by giving each other that quality of conversation and communication versus the quantity. Don't assume just because you're there, your relationship is done and it's going to be successful. It's not. You need to put into that relationship positivity and fuel it to be able to bring to you something that's positive, because now you only have each other. And it has also brought to light, because I've been doing these talks and a lot of people have said, yes, we've actually managed now to spend time with our children. And, we're not like parents who are remote control parents, because we've been there. And it's really made people understand who their children are, made them reassess how to function with their children as well. So I think relationships have taken a little bit of a jolt. And I think, please, as a warning, if you feel that you are losing control and losing your temper and becoming violent, and if you feel on the other hand that you're a victim of violence, please reach out to the helplines that are available, because they can help you understand how to deal and cope with the situation better. And it's important because there's no shame. In fact, the Poddar Foundation works on silence toro. And every time I finish something, I'm like, silence toro, zor se bolo. Because hidden agendas, things that you keep within you fester, they become bigger and they blow up in your own face. Please help yourself. And the only way you can help yourself is by reaching out, walking away from situations that do not benefit you. And I do not mean escaping to another place. Working in your mind to make sure that you can walk away from situations like that.
I like you said कि हाँ, जब तक आप अंदर रखे हो अपने दिमाग के अंदर, अपने मन के अंदर, ये आपको और ज़्यादा बॉदर करने वाली है, तो फिर प्लीज गो स्पीक इट आउट. अपने परिवार से बात कीजिए, अपने दोस्तों से बात कीजिए, but make sure you speak it out, because when you speak it out, it kind of lightens your heart and thought and makes you a little more stable. Am I right, Prakriti?
So I would suggest you speak to, of course, you can talk to your friends, etc., but you won't get a mirror. You will get it because they all have biases. You will get a mirror when you talk to somebody who has no bias. And that is why I reach out. I mean, the helplines are free. You can talk to counselors and volunteers who've been trained to be able to deal with this, only because they will show you your thought. Like, I'll give you an example. Okay, now that you brought this up, I'm talking to you, you're my friend. And I say, yeah, I've had a really bad day. I don't know, my husband's always shouting. And you'll say to me, I know, what's wrong with them? Even my husband carries on with this whole situation. The light, the binoculars have gone to that person. It's not on you anymore. Counselor will say, oh, I totally understand what you're going through. It seems to be a really difficult situation. So tell me what really is happening in this situation that you're going through. I deepen the understanding. I make sure that you have a mirror in your own life, and the lens takes you deeper and deeper to the crevices to understand what is your part in this issue and what is creating the disharmony. क्योंकि ताली एक हाथ से कभी नहीं बजती है for an adult.
Truly said. You know, I have a lot of questions on these subject, but I will take that a little later on a Q&A. I want to go ahead. You spoke about self-care, caregivers, of course, relationship. I want to go a little more towards the work integration. Your take on work-life integration. What do you suggest and how to go about it?
So I want to highlight that. I call it work-life integration because you do not have any work-life balance at this point. Time is fluid. You know, we are doing things that we wouldn't be doing. 6 baj gaye, wahi hum kaam hamara khatam ho gaya. It's 6:51. We're still here, right? We may still be here at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock because there is no such thing as work-life balance anymore. But work-life integration, again, going back to number one, scheduling. Schedule your time effectively. Keep a dashboard for yourself. In that time, schedule your self-care, schedule your meetings, make sure you're not isolating yourself, make sure you are able to communicate with people, make sure that the savior that you have, which is your ability to deal with the situation, is based on the foundation of organization. Because the moment your day is organized, you know when you need to, be there for your family, when you need to go there for lunch, when you need to make sure you can help with the dinner, when you need to make sure you can help with the dishes. I've been talking to somebody who the other day I was speaking to, who says, I said, what are you doing? He said, jharu pocha mein kar raha hu. I mean, he's not somebody who generally does jharu pocha, right? But this is what it needs. But also work-life balance means, despite all that, how do you make sure that you have that conversation with HR, telling them that this is your schedule? HR has to be a little more flexible in understanding what really are some of the key areas for them, or what are the key areas for their employees, and really how are their employees placed, and how do they negotiate this time for themselves? How can they help them sort of utilize technology to be able to work with the new situation, because technology has played a major role. Now, if you are an employer, you still have to have work-life integration. You still have to recognize that your governance is very important. High quality of governance really makes the attrition rate, extremely low. In these cases, we want to make sure that that communication is clear as well, because when you have clear communication, your employees are there with you longer. They feel like they're in this war or battle or situation together. You understand that town halls need to be had. You need to really bring them together, really form that community, because that community will help them fine-tune their own capabilities to give back. And with that, there are some tips that you need to go through at all times. Make sure that when you have that time, and I've already spoken about the sort of scheduling of time with the members in your house, avoid distractions at that time. Please keep your phones away, or if you have WhatsApp, I think the best way to use WhatsApp is really to have it on your computer screen, so you're not constantly going somewhere else. Any social media, schedule a time for it. Don't do it at the time that you need to do it. Don't do it at the time that you need to do work. Set yourself break reminders. One of the things that I recommend highly is the Pomodoro chunks, which is really, it's like a pasta sauce that has a lot of big chunks of tomato. In the same way, utilize those chunks of tomato, like those chunks of time where you know that you are the most focused. Use that time to really integrate what is essential, using the 80-20 Pareto principle, the 80% of work that you need to accomplish. Utilize that 80% of work by giving yourself that time, that extremely efficient time in those Pomodoro chunks. Marry the two and work on that at that point to make sure that you are capable of doing the work that you need to do. These are all strategies, and unfortunately these take me 5 days to teach people, but I'm giving you a short snippet of how do you make sure you have all the boxes ticked to make your life easy in these days.
Wow, I'm sure I'm just noting down all the points and some important points. If you just schedule things and keep things off distraction, keep it focused, it really does wonder. Thank you so much, Prakriti, for that point you mentioned right now. I'm going to just go on to a couple of more last questions that we discussed. what's beyond lockdown now? As we see life for so many people across the world, what is beyond lockdown?
Great question. It's a question that's the question of the hour. I think that there is a myth at this point to assume that beyond lockdown means everything's going to go back to square one. It is not going to go back to square one. You may still be doing the elbow shakes. You may not come very close to people. You may still be going through grief. You may still be going through an emotional, and you may still be going through financial crisis. You may still be feeling helplessness, but I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. There is good news. This silver lining that I have seen, given this pandemic, has really brought me to understand that everybody here is fighting a common enemy. We are not only fighting a common enemy, we are also understanding that we all are going through the same thing. There is a community which is larger than our homes now. We're reaching out to people far more than we did before, even like through webinars such as these, which are open to the public as well. You know, there are people who have started to think about their mental health, which was never understood before. It was a stigma. This is allowing us to have those generative conversations. It's allowing us to kind of build our psychological framework to be able to deal with the changes that are required. You need to, and will always need to, focus on yourself. You will need to focus on communication, verbal. You will need to understand how to build your technology know-how to be able to deal with the masses. What I love, by the way, is that this is also brought to light that women, I know I love women, okay, but women can and will be given an equal place now in any job, because everybody's realized that you can be operating at your optimal level even when you're working from the house or when you have flexi time. And I think that is a really, really important part beyond COVID that is going to come back home. In fact, organizations may actually spend less now because they may not need to have those big swanky offices. They may actually be able to have meeting rooms and may be able to work from the home. I mean, people may transform the way in which they've been operating, and why not? You may want to actually spend more time with your family because you've learned how to. You may actually need to shift the way in which you've been thinking to understand what the triggers were in the past that may not be applicable now. This is time for a new change. This is time for a new way. And there is no way that this would have happened without this COVID. And I mean, we already know that the earth has regenerated in this time. The pollution has gone. We're breathing better, even though, of course, COVID is there. But there is so much positivity that's also come. So brace yourself, of course, for the changes. Be open and flexible for the changes, and build your resources of technology, build your resources of your own self-value, self-worth, and connect. Feel the connection online and offline. And when you go offline, make sure you follow the Indian tradition of namaste and you do not hug anybody immediately, because you still do not know what really lies in the person that is a carrier but is not visible. So please make sure that you understand the ancient Indian ethos was built to actually prevent ourselves from falling ill in times like these. And if we just go back to our lessons, I think we are already in good stead. We are actually coming back home.
That's true. That's lovely said. I like how you just mentioned, globalization was disconnecting the world and people and emotions, and the crisis is reconnecting emotions and people and family together. I have one question that is off subject, but so important. And I know most of the people will question me on this, but every time the lockdown is about to get over, it gets extended. Yeah. And those million thoughts of happiness, again, constrained to the thought again, what next? So I want to know your answer to this thoughts and how can one get over the thoughts?
So there is an ABC model of counseling that works really well for this. You have an activating event. The activating event is the COVID. You have a B, which is a belief system. Okay. You have a C, which is the consequence. I'm stuck at home. I'm in lockdown. You can't change A. You can't change C. So you can't change the activating event and you can't change the consequence. You can only change your belief system. And what that really means is, how do I change my belief system? I say to anybody who says this to me, I am so frustrated, I don't know what's happening, I want to make sure that this ends. I say, put 100% of your frustration and anger in that. And why don't you put 100 people's frustration and anger in that and tell me, does it change the situation? It doesn't. So why aggravate yourself? Because if you have no control over it, there is an internal locus of control, things that you have control over. My thoughts, my feelings, my attitude, my behavior, my reactions. You have control over this. You do not have control over things that are happening around you, including your spouse and their behavior, including a child and their behavior. You only have that limited area of control. And I want you to recognize the limited nature of your control so that you can be happy. And you know, Mithun, I want to tell you this really on the side. I have had 3 kids. My first kid was a premature baby. My second kid, because my first kid came early, my second kid, I was on bed rest for 7 or 7.5 months. I couldn't go to my brother's wedding because I was on bed rest, okay? Now imagine my plight, because the doctor is telling me every week that, okay, next week you'll be able to get up and walk. Okay, next week you'll be able to do this. 7.5 months on a bed that was like this, head down, legs up, for 7.5 months. And you know what kept me alive? The fact that it is going to end at some point. Afterwards, the baby is going to come out healthy. And this is also for your own health and safety. And I think don't doubt that. Go with the flow, because eventually things will get better. And so all you need to do is change that belief system in the middle. And sometimes we're forced to recognize the limitations of our own God-like notion of I can change everything and do everything. You get to question that and just change what you can change, which is your own thoughts. Make sure they become more positive, because it's only for your own protection and not for anybody else's.
Rightly said. Believe. You need to believe someday everything will get better, fine, at its best. And exactly what Prakriti just told us right now. Thank you so much for addressing so many subjects of ours, from self-care to caregivers, relationship, work integration, of course, beyond lockdown. That's really amazing. Now let's get into the Q&A, because I see it's been flooded right now with questions. So are we ready, Prakriti, with questions?
Always.
Always ready. Okay, let's bring the first question. The question here is from Daphne. She's asking, I am feeling anxious these days. Though my family is with me, I can't share my stress of being stuck indoors with them. What do I do?
Daphne, that's great. In fact, 90% of people are going through that. They're really frustrated being with their parents, by the way. They're really frustrated being at home. Frustration is definitely a norm of what people are facing. So there's no shame in what you're going through, number one. Number two, you have to address what it is that's causing you the frustration. So it's not the activating event of being stuck at home with your parents, but something about that situation that's causing the aggravation. And so therefore, once you identify what is that situation, could it be, I'm giving you examples, could it be, I find it very irritating that my conversation is always overheard. I find it very irritating, so you pick what really is causing. I find it very irritating that I don't have a life of my own and I have to be there whenever food is served. Could be simple things like this. I mean, things that trigger the anger or the frustration or the annoyance is what you need to deal with. You do not need to deal with the global scenario, because activating event and consequence, like I said, will always be there and will remain. So that belief system, which is, what is it that's causing this pain? And then you question, or causing this grievance or causing this stress, that you question. Is it worth me losing my sense of well-being by being angry about that one thing that you found is a trigger? So is it worth I'll take for example, my annoyance at eating at the same time that everybody else wants to eat. Okay. Now I'll say, is it valuable to me to be annoyed by that? Or is it better for me to have a conversation about how this is really bothering me and how I would need more space? Like I said, open communication. Or is it okay for me to be flexible here at this point? There are 3 different things that you can do in this situation, and you can work on each and do a pros and cons or SWOT analysis on this and see which one works the best for you. So don't judge the anxiety. Don't judge the feelings that you're going through. Don't judge the behavior that comes up, because the moment you're going through any kind of anxiety, you're going to go through irritability, anger, maybe heart palpitations, sweat, all kinds of things happen with stress. Don't judge all that. Judge whether this situation, is it important enough for you to lose your well-being over? Because this is well-being 360, and you do not need to lose your well-being over something that is inconsequential, when you can make a change, move the irrational thoughts to the rational, move your unhelpful thoughts to helpful, by making sure you address the problem by having open, very clean communication, not aggressive, maybe assertive at times. That's it.
Rightly said. Daphne, I hope you got your answer. Next question is about from Disha. She questions, my office work has increased multifold. Add to that, my family demands my time. How do I cope up and keep the balance?
Scheduling. Like I said, scheduling is the only mantra. You have to schedule, and in that schedule, keep a dashboard for the whole week, because you don't have to do everything today. You know what is the most important thing that needs to come forward. You know, I mean, Trello is a great tool to use, by the way, if you want to use Trello or whatever you have internally. I don't know, maybe you have some scheduling tools or to-do lists internally as well. But schedule in your dashboard things that you can move to the next day, things that you can move to the third day, so that your whole week, map of the week is in front of you. And in that, like I said, right in the beginning, schedule time for your family as well, because of course they're all locked down together and you are not alone anymore. This is, in fact, this is the time, despite the fact that they're saying it's loneliness and all that, this is the time that you are not alone. So, you know, really schedule, and people will understand.
I just love that point. Remember, you're not alone. There's family as well. And even they must be feeling the same thing. It's your time to be there. So I hope, Disha, you got your answer. My next question is from Raj, who's questioning, I'm a frequent traveler. This lockdown is making me feel irritated. How do I reduce my irritation?
I'm a frequent traveler and I am feeling the same way. But when you can't change the fact and the future, you can only change the one thing within yourself. Understand that maybe this will change. You know, one of the things I've been thinking about, I mean, this is off like I can't even say off the record because this is streaming, but even after the lockdown, unless they're really dropping down things for everybody to kind of have safe air, I'm not really sure how long it's going to be till the flights are really safe. And I was talking to my son about this, he's 14, and I was like, you know, I'm feeling really frustrated. This is my only frustration. So he says, you know, if you really want to travel, just get on a bike and bike around. Maybe you'll get that like feeling. You know, so there are different things we can do. Sorry, my lights have gone. So in case I drop off, let me know. So there are some things that you can do to make it easier for yourself. And there are some things that you can't do. So you can't control when the flights are going to get activated. You can't control that. You can definitely surf on the net to different areas and see what that looks like, what your next destination would be. You know, keep a kind of a record for what you want to do, like a bucket list for once this is over.
Truly said. You know, I'm just going to just add on to your answer right now. Even I travel quite frequently. And for the first time, I have got a perfect schedule in my life, which I've never had over the last 15 years. So take it that way, that you can actually schedule your life and make a lot of changes for your body, for your mental well-being, and for your wellness, and with your family. I think that's also a best way to go about it. So I hope, Raj, you got your answer. And if you still want to travel to your kitchen, your balcony, your bedroom, your hall, there's a lot more travel around as well.
Travel in your mind like the gurus did, you know, they just travel.
Actually.
Astral travel.
Next question, it's coming from Anjali. Many people around me are losing jobs, getting salary cuts. How do I stay away from these billions of negative thoughts around me, including coronavirus?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and really, you know, very valid. There are companies that are going through this cut down. This is the worst economic crisis of the century, almost. I mean, it's really bad, worse than 1930. And it's not going to get better anytime soon. It's going to take a while. There is the negativity. Again, you have to question whether your negativity is going to help you feel positive, to be able to build your resources, to be able to sort of grow in your capability for the next job that you may want to get, or is it going to help you in some way? I know that this lockdown has caused so many people to feel overwhelmed with the situation and helpless, really, and totally hopeless. But there is nothing that, like I keep saying, we cannot change the situation. And in fact, it's also very difficult for employers, because they've also now suddenly started to analyze their budgets, really look at the HR performances, the KPIs, really see who's measuring up and who's not, and cutting down on the people that were not measuring up. Because before we would just carry them along with us, and because we didn't have this pressure of cutting people down, we carried them with us, because attrition and attrition rates, if they're high, it really breeds badly for the company. But now they're really getting to assess that. So yes, if the performance was bad, or the performance was substandard, or even if the performance is really good but the company can't support it, that is going to happen. There are going to be cut downs, but there's also a complete openness to new businesses, jobs, entrepreneurship ideas that are coming up. People are becoming self-employed really fast. And if you have a skill, if you have a talent, hone on that. And if you don't have a skill and a talent, learn something at this point, because you may have a little bit more time to do some webinars. Even the Harvard Business School is giving so many free workshops and webinars. And I think that, all the universities really are. Take some of those, really understand what it is that you might want in your next leg of life. Use this as an opportunity rather than a threat. Because when you do a SWOT analysis, you have strengths, you have weaknesses, you know that you have opportunities, and you know that you have threats. And this threat you can't change. Your strength, you can grow. The opportunities are available. Seek them out, find them. I remember when I was in Canada and I was moving from a banking kind of job to doing mental health. I remember, doing Myers-Briggs, doing sort of personality assessments to see whether my idea of what I wanted to build at that point, my image consulting, was it really marrying my sort of psyche? And when I realized it did, I just chucked everything up and took that strength for myself to build my own company. So really utilize this time.
We can actually have a long conversation about this whole subject, if I'm not wrong, Prakriti. And we can also have another episode altogether about moving from a banking towards a mental health. That can be another subject of conversation for sure. I'm going to have another question. I have a lot of questions that I want to ask you as well. But let me just read one more question from the chat room. There is no balance between my work and home life. I manage to eat only once a day, being at home. How do I bring about a balance? Question from Sudhanshu.
Yeah. Sudhanshu, lovely question. You're going to have to balance it yourself. Eating one meal a day, I know I'm going to say this out loud, but eating one meal a day is not a bad idea, given the fact that we're not burning that much. But make sure it's nutritious. Snacking in the middle with like maybe some nuts, if you can get your hand on nuts, if you can get your hand on some kind of fruits, keep that handy. But one really big cooked meal should be enough at this point, because we're really not burning that much energy. The work life which we were talking about, you're talking more about the fact that it's really difficult for you because you're doing that much. Again, apart from setting your boundaries, which is something that you need to do, which is why in the work life thing, I said, talk to HR, set up your boundaries. Tell them how much time you can give. Tell them how much time you can't give, given the circumstance. HR has to be a little more flexible at this point. Because corporate governance matters. And there has been, this is a pandemic. This is not a regular situation. So you do have the support of them. But really don't push yourself to a breakdown, because it's not worth the lockdown, right? If you get what I'm saying. It's not worth it. So you need to focus on really, like I said to the lady who asked me a question before, really focus on what you need to get done, and schedule your time using dashboards effectively. Make sure you're not overextending yourself, you're getting enough rest, you're getting enough sleep, and you are eating nutritious food. Even if the cooked meal is once a day, you are getting nutrition throughout the day with seeds, nuts, fruits, and those kind of things. And do not drink too much caffeine. Do not get into alcohol and drugs. Do not do any of those things. They do not add any value. They will be depleting your energy. And, I know, Mithun, I don't know if you want to share it with everybody, but, congratulations to you for actually having a healthier lifestyle.
That's right, Sudhanshu. Make sure you have a plan and eat at least not once, not twice, thrice, mandatory. One last question I will take, Prakriti, from the chat box, and then maybe I can ask my own questions, a couple of them, if we still have time. A friend, somebody from Mumbai called Irvin is asking, living in Mumbai is one of the densest cities in the world. Not many are used to distance and space. The social distancing would stay for quite some time. How important is social conditioning for our future, and how can I do my bit?
Irvin, do not focus on social distancing. Focus on the fact that there's no emotional distancing at this point. Okay? Social distancing is something that has to be done. Emotional distancing is something that we do not need to do. We do not have, I know Bombay because I live in Bombay. I'm not living there right now, but I live in Bombay primarily. And it's very, very important to be safe at this point. Um, People need to, and that's why a lot of people, and the government there as well, there's a lot of awareness being built on the importance of social, or rather physical distancing, because physical distancing is mandatory to be safe or to be able to cut this down. Please ensure physical distancing. And in fact, if you have means to social media, make sure you spread the word, make sure you are giving vox pops, talking. Every single person needs to be, a really strong voice in the physical distancing, especially for Mumbai, because it has become clearly, it's not one of the most dangerous cities, by the way. In fact, India has the very, very low rates of death, given the COVID and given our population. We're doing really well. But in any case, from our vision, from our tunnel vision, it seems to be a lot. But definitely do not try to, break the, obviously you're not trying to break the laws, but do not try to do that also, because it's really just for your own well-being and everybody else's well-being. We do not know who the carriers are, even if they're not displaying the signs, right? So we've got to be very, very careful, and don't rush into, I want to make sure that, I can go to work, because the moment you get in that elevator and somebody sneezes, you have no idea what you're in for.
I can totally connect to what you're saying right now, because there's a feeling, and people across, I'm hearing news that people are getting hit or belted by a group of people because one is sneezing or coughing on regular terms. And that's really scary. So I think it's a process that will take some time, and I'm sure one day we'll all get better, and the earth will heal, and people here will heal better. So I have so many questions that I want to ask you personally, but I think time is a constraint here. So I'm not sure how many questions I can ask you, but just one question I will ask you on a one-to-one basis here, that Prakriti, you know what, all this being at home with family time, working, what I'm seeing as an observation in my own house, that, people are on social media more than the usual they were.
Yeah.
After the lockdown is over, will this impact your mental well-being, that you are constantly on social media, from TikTok to Ludo, playing Ludo on different apps, to Candy Crush, to, Instagram, Facebook, and XYZ, and so many things?
It's like saying that you go to a market or shop and you pick up chips, you pick up chocolate, you pick up all the stuff that's there, that's junk food. You have options of healthy food as well on the net. Don't go for the junk. Don't go for this, because this is addictive. What you're talking about, what people are doing, is addictive. It is classified as an addiction in WHO as well. You want to make sure that you are stringent in what you want to look at, what you want to feed, what you want to take in. Everything that you take in, buddies, everything that you take in is reprogramming you to a level. Every single day, even this, what we're doing, is reprogramming you in some way. You are getting trained. There are two things that happen. So you've got genes and you've got conditioning. Genes, I don't change. Conditioning is getting altered every single minute of the day by the things you accept and the things you reject. Please reject the things that are not healthy for you. Please reject that social media of, I need to look good, I need to look like this, and I need whatever it is that you're doing, because it's not healthy for you. You are complete already in yourself. And self-care is not about that photo that shows me that you're working on self-care. It is really about what you're doing. There is no need to get on to, of course, if you need like a little bit of a laugh, and one TikTok is not going to really kill you, because of course moderation is the key here. But you do not want to wake up. I mean, I see it with my children. I have a 12-year-old who will wake up in the morning, especially early, so he can get on his computer, on his iPad without me being there, because Fortnite is something he plays. And I'm like, oh my God, you cannot do this. First you will have a bath, brush your teeth, you will do this, because I'm setting up rules. You have to set up rules for yourself. You cannot. You have to schedule that time. So when you want to schedule that time to do rubbish, schedule that time. Because yes, it may help you in some way, but it cannot and should not. Take it from a mental health expert. Be there all day. Please do not do that. Schedule time for it. Please do not. They say, and there's a study that says 1.5 hours and no more. I find 1.5 hours a lot. No, it's too much. But please, 1.5 hours and no more of this junk media, because it does, like Nitin has said, it will cause a huge repercussion as you finish this lockdown, because 21 days to make a habit and 21 days to break a habit. You have already gone past 21 days in this lockdown. And if that has become something that you've been doing, it will become a habit. The other thing that has become a habit is porn viewership. And I want you to understand that all these addictive things will have very serious repercussions on your relationships with people. Because if you are spending more time on your social media and your TikToks and your Instagram than you are spending with the person who is in front of you, this is going to tell in your relationship. It's going to tell in your communication. You are going to become aggressive in the way in which you communicate, because you want that space to be able to do what you want. There's going to be fights. It's going to trigger a cycle of unhappiness. So best to schedule that time and make sure everybody knows what time you scheduled for it.
You have no clue how happy I am, Prakriti, having a conversation with you. It's really taught me a lot. I'm sure it's also informed all our viewers who are watching us about how you can take control. And as we discuss this, it's for you to only get better. We're here with Wellness 360. Make sure you make the most of it here with ICICI Lombard. Thank you so much, Prakriti. I can have a whole day of chat with you on mental well-being and mental problems and so much, but time is a constraint here. But thank you so much for joining us here at Wellness 360 at home by ICICI Lombard. And you are an amazing person who moved from a serious banking to get into a very, very serious business of mental health and to cure so many lives. I must say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. You're doing good. So thank you so much again, Prakriti, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, that was Prakriti Poddar there, giving you an insight about how you can take charge of your own mental well-being and make sure you riding over it and being the best you can ever be. It's all for you to become completely well, because this is Wellness 360 at home, and we want you all to be the best of the best in all criteria possible. My name is Mithun Upadhyay. Follow me on Instagram, but make sure if you don't follow me also, be at home, stay at home, be positive, be healthy. That's exactly what we want you all to do. This is Wellness 360 at home, brought to you by ICICI Lombard. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in our next episode. Thank you.